So hello there, everybody. I'm Karen Rands, the Compassionate Capitalist and author of the Inside Secrets to Angel Investing. And I'm very excited today to be doing this video interview with Gio Roper. His company is Roper and Partners. It is a nationally recognized, accredited public relations firm. And I'm going to go ahead and say hello, Gio. How are you today?
Wonderful, Karen. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is I traditionally have done a radio show. This is sort of a new venture into actually seeing myself talk. But I think it's good because I can see you respond. So
absolutely. Video is where it's at nowadays.
That's right. Hopefully I use my hands to talk. I've noticed I've already jiggled the computer a few times, so I have to keep my hands off the table. Anyway, so tell me, what does it mean to be a nationally accredited public relations firm? I didn't know they had accreditations for public relations.
Well, actually the accreditation is personal. It's for myself, yeah. I don't think they accredit firms as much as they do the individuals, but I've had that for the accreditation for 10 years now. It is a nationally recognized accreditation. It just basically means that I've spent a number of years in the industry. I have the skills, knowledge, and experience to be able to pass what essentially is the bar exam for PR professionals. So,
so kind of sort of like, I know my husband's in HR and he has to get this kind of certification accreditation. It just sort of ups your game and amongst your peers that you've done as much as you've done.
It does, and it's also for those looking to hire us. To have those three little letters APR after your name just shows that you do have the credentials and you've proven that you can do the job that people are looking for you to do.
Okay, great. So I know I saw on your bio for everybody listening, your website is ropertandpartners.com, ROPERTAND Partners. And I saw that you write on a regular basis for a couple of magazines, Space Coast and I4 magazine. Is that right?
Yes, those are two regional publications in the Central Florida area, very much attuned to the business, the entrepreneurial community, those folks in the stage 2 businesses, and it's really a great opportunity for me to be able to share a lot of insights into public relations and marketing communications, especially for those that are getting started in business who are, what I find is that a lot of folks really know how to do what they do. If they've got a technical skill, if they've got a service or a professional skill, they know how to do that hands down cold. But then going out and be able to market those skills, those talents, and the products and services they produce is a foreign world. And it's something that, takes a lot of time to really get a good handle on and be able to do it well. And so every month I get a chance to share some of my insights and some statistics and strategies and tips that hopefully will help them along. And if nothing else, they find it overwhelming and call me for support.
Yeah. Well, I saw, because I went to the I4 business, so I guess even if you don't live in Central Florida, they have an opt-in that people can probably get that, and so they could go and look at your articles pretty easily if they wanted to.
Absolutely, yes. It's the best practices, and so I started that early summer, and it's been really great. I enjoy writing. To me, that's something a lot of people say, "Oh, I got to write something," and to me, writing is a joy. I really do. And, not even just writing for fiction and fun. I enjoy writing white papers and press releases and blogs and those kind of things.
So let's talk a little bit, just in case even myself, tell me the nuances between public relations and marketing and brand strategy and those kind of things. Because I think sometimes people don't, and just press releases, public relations is kind of like an umbrella for a lot of that different things.
Well, public relations is the development of communication strategies between a company, a brand, and its audiences. And that is the way that a relationship is built, by communicating information, education, insights. This is how you build authority and thought leadership as an organization, as a brand. Whereas marketing is a direct line function that is involved in the sales of products. So where you're producing in public relations to a broad audience and you're reaching out to a large number of people, and that can be everything from the media to your prospective customers to the community that you are invested in. Marketing is directed to a very specific target audience that you hope to buy your products or services. So that's where the two are off. But they interrelate. And what we've seen over the last few years, and this is the reason I developed my firm the way I did, was that public relations and marketing are kind of melding a little bit. And the communication aspect is so important. And how you do that is critical, especially nowadays in digital and social media, where everything is really flying across the web and on your posts and tweets and everywhere else. It's being able to make sure your message is consistent and yet flexible to be attuned to the specific audience. So whereas in public relations, you're reaching a wide scope, in marketing, you are targeting that message down, but you still got to be able to have the values and the corporate culture defined, because people are looking now to be a part of your brand. They want to have just as much say in what your brand is as you do.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
So give me like an example of that. How would I as a consumer influence somebody's brand?
Well, you look at the way, say, some of the bigger brands that are out there. What people are looking for is, how do they connect with the things that are important to me? So if you're say one of the larger shoe manufacturers or the athletic wear manufacturers, they're being more or less now told that you need to be doing fair pricing. You need to be working with, producers and vendors that are, that have fair trade practices, employee practices. They want to shape the world, and they want your product or your brand to be doing the exact same thing. They call it corporate social responsibility, but it goes much further than that. It's really allowing folks to have a say that, this cause is important to me, or this culture is important to me. And so I want my brands to reflect that. And they're very, very particular now, especially millennials. They want the brand to reflect them.
Okay, so that kind of brings up a current event, sort of. It's not that current anymore, but so within the context of, you have a brand that's a very big brand, and they try to do a marketing strategy that's going to connect to a certain audience that they think is their audience of consumers, or they want to grow within a segment of the audience. And then it misfires, and they have what always then comes up is a PR nightmare, right?
Yeah.
So we talk about the Pepsi ad with right on the street with the whole protest thing going on, and Pepsi's going to solve the problem. I mean, I kind of understood where they were going for with trying to kind of harkened back to me with some of the old Coca-Cola jingles of let's all just be happy, and the old image of the kid putting a daisy back in the Vietnam War period in somebody's rifle, and it was and it may be different time, different strokes, different folks, but what was something they were trying to do from a marketing standpoint became a PR issue. So sometimes people think of PR, so within that context of what you had just said, but also PR isn't just saving people. It's not always just to the rescue through PR. It's also promoting a positive piece of it. So kind of talk a little bit about that from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is what PR is positive. You're working to improve the image of your brand. And when we talk about brand, we're not just talking about the logo or the name of the company. We're talking about what the company stands for. What are its values? What benefit does it bring by providing products and services to its customers? The Pepsi was with every good intention, because it was such a heated time, and still is. And with the whole Blue Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, all these different key terms and folks that are standing up for their causes. Pepsi believed that they could kind of bridge the gap, so to speak. But unfortunately, people are very, very sensitive, and it triggered the wrong thing. So what then happens? Well, public relations is also crisis communications. So, and I've been involved in that plenty of times where, a misstep by an organization requires some very quick and effective communication to clarify, to sometimes apologize, to rectify. There's all steps that are involved in any kind of a crisis situation, and step in and fix it as much as you can. If you go to United Airlines, and we can talk about everybody because we're not too worried about getting somebody coming after us. But United Airlines had those debacles that happened on their planes. Now you backstories of what really happened, who knows? But the impression that the public saw was one thing. The response by the CEO at first was almost like, you know what, our customers don't matter to us, it's only profits. And then somebody whispered in his ear, he's like, our stock just dropped by 10 points. And all of a sudden he says, our customers are very important too. So, messaging has to be managed correctly. If you don't have somebody there to kind of watch what's being said, and especially in today's digital 24-hour ability for something to travel like wildfire, you can really miss up pretty bad.
Yeah. Okay, so typically when I have my radio show, my audience are investors and entrepreneurs. So I'm going to kind of bring it back into the context of sequencing, right? Because we're talking about, there's a difference between startups and what they need to focus on, and then growing companies and stuff. So when somebody is either trying to develop a brand image or a marketing strategy or any of that stuff, when is it that PR and a PR strategy comes into that sequence, either when they're launching just from a startup, when they're just trying to figure out what is their brand identity and corporate identity, to somebody that's maybe growing and been kind of on the sidelines, and now they want to be more prevalent and be a authority in their industry or a leader in their industry. At what point do they reach out to somebody like yourself and say, hey, I need some guidance on how to put all these pieces and parts together?
Actually, if Karen, it is at the very beginning. You need to have a good PR and marketing strategy developed when you're developing your business plan, because what that is going to do is it's going to identify, and a good PR pro is going to be able to sit down with a startup as well as an experienced business and identify what their brand is, what that brand means to their audiences. And they're going to be able to find the right words. They're going to find the right stories. They're going to be able to communicate that across the platforms. A lot of times with startups, they don't have a big budget, so the best thing they can do is get good publicity, get good stories out, get great press coverage, start building that identity that the customer then becomes familiar with, and then gets to know the products and services that go behind that. So it is from the very beginning, public relations should be part of the strategy that you've got going forward. Once you get into that stage 2, then you're really looking to, again, build on the authority of your organization, become a leader, especially when you get into these some of these competitive industries, and you're able to then take this on a broader scale. You usually have a better you have a bigger budget for it. And so what you're doing is the storytelling you're using is going to translate into your marketing. You're going to take a lot of that storytelling, a lot of that communication, and use that to reach those audiences. Again, give them that feeling that they have an invested interest in what's going on with your brand and your business.
Okay, so then further, okay, so for example, 2 things. Okay, when one of the areas I talk about in my book, it's like is that entrepreneur. I mean, the whole thing about investors, and it's like the Buffett model I talk about. You invest in what you know, and then part of my strategy that I use with I call it investor relations, but it's really kind of within the scope of what a public relations. So it sounds like we're probably partnering on some things on this, because I know probably what you know in your pinky, kind of what that whole saying is when it comes to all of this stuff. I just know how to communicate to investors and how to do, some basic stuff when it comes to and pieces of parts of creating an awareness in a marketplace of a company or a product, so that in the world of general solicitation with Reg A Plus and 506C and in some cases crowdfunding, you want people that are interested in what that kind of a product or that kind of a company, because they have some connection to it themselves. Either it's a product they would use, a product they have seen a need for, or a company that in their own company they might use, whatever it may be. And so they see it because of stuff that's out in the marketplace about that company. And there's one element that's an advertisement, but then there's also the press releases and the communications and the social media and these things that are advertorials, or like an article that's written that is about a company, but it's written like an article rather than a press release.
Right.
All those things create awareness about a company, so they'll go and click on their website, and then in my case, they'll see an investor relations tab and know, oh, I didn't realize I could invest in this company. They sound really cool. That's cool. I'd like to learn more. And so that's kind of part of the strategy, the stuff that I do. And so, so within that context, talk about sort of, and I go back to this, but the difference between advertising and press release when you're creating brand awareness or company awareness, or PR versus advertising, sort of how they interconnect from your perspective.
Well, in the PR, when we talk about public relations and media, and you go to investor relations, that is public relations as well. It has many different avenues it goes into. But if you're talking strictly into getting a press release out, your focus in getting out these stories is really to earn media. It's the free stuff. This is, when you talk about a story that shows up in the New York Times or Washington Post or Forbes or Entrepreneur Magazine, you can't pay for that kind of publicity in an ad. Richard Branson said, he goes, I would rather have one good story than 100 good ads, because that's exactly what public relations does. Is it gives you validation. The media says this company is worth telling the story about, and hopefully a good public relations person will have the right words, the right keywords, the right phrases, so that then once it gets out there, it becomes a searchable entity, a piece of work that then can reflect back to the company, to its websites, and it all intertwines from there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's, earlier I said this is one of the topics, and based on the things you've sort of said, it made me think that, I thought there was, because I watch a lot of these webinars, and so people talk about authority marketing and thought leadership in a space, and a lot of times that's geared towards like the CEO of a company or something like that to sort of establish their credibility. And so much of that in today's market is perceived to be, social media driven. That there's and it may be because it's like a blog, but it's things that are and even I think blogs are, I consider those social media. So it's like it's blog posting, it's things, and then referencing to that kind of stuff. And then there's what has been traditional PR, press releases and interviews. So is it really that there's really not a distinct difference anymore, that they're really it's all kind of integrated and all part of a total plan when you're trying to establish yourself as a thought leader? Because that's been one of the things that I've been struggling with myself, within my tight little community. They all think I'm a thought leader in compassionate capitalism, but I need the world to know that if I'm going to start the movement, right?
Right.
With my book, I have to do my
I love that. Shameless self-promotion. No, I'm an advocate of that. Let me tell you what, name.
Yeah. So, so with that being sort of an integrated thing, what makes something go viral? Is it a funny cat video, or is it really, can it be based on actual content that is relevant?
It is content, and it is relevant. You hit those two so very important words. What I find, especially among folks, is that they don't understand the value of content. And when we say content, that's PR. That's those press releases, those are articles, white papers, blogs, videos, infographics. All of those are communication vehicles. All of those are used to educate, entertain, inform. And so having a broad spectrum of those pieces is very necessary. You can't just do press releases. You can't just write blogs. In order to have an authority, and in fact right now what's happening is long form blogs and white papers are really starting to take off in the fact that people want to get information and they want to get it from one source. So they are willing to spend time, if the information is good, they're willing to spend time reading it and absorbing it, which, for a long time people were taught, let's write a 350 word blog. Short, a one pager, make it something that's a quick read because we all have the attention span that's less of a goldfish. It's only 7 seconds now. Well, that's the 7 seconds to get your attention, but people want to be able to go to a source. And I tell folks, if you can have people come to your website and find blogs, white papers, information, videos, things that they can learn from, and they don't have to go somewhere else, guess who becomes the authority? Guess who becomes the go-to? And so when we talk about content development, there's a whole strategy. When I work with a client, we sit down and we map out literally 6 months to a year of content. And when it's going to be developed, what format it's going to take, where it's going to be distributed, what the goal of that particular piece is going to be. How is a white paper going to translate to a blog, going to translate to a press release, and all of those things. And then we get them to understand that to create a content strategy, it takes you a good 6 months of putting that stuff out there, getting people to pay attention to it. You think, I'll put a blog out, somebody will read it, I'll be famous. No, not going to happen.
Right.
Put out a dozen blogs, people, start, maybe they see one or two and they like that and they'll start coming out. Get 24 blogs out and a couple of white papers and a few videos. All of a sudden you've got a content library that people can go to and get information.
Yes. Okay. So yes, that's great insight. So I think it's probably good to wrap up. I'm going to give you an opportunity to add anything that you wanted to cover that we haven't covered. Do you have a book you got coming out that you want to show, you want to promote?
I'm working on the book, but right now just, go to Space Coast Business Magazine or I4 Business Magazine. They're both online. You can catch the edition. September issue's coming out in a couple of weeks, or August is out there now. I do a weekly show on Facebook called Ask the Pros, and I spell pros, capital P, capital R, small o, small s, so that you've got the PR aspect in there. But I've been doing that for about a month now, and it's got some great response. Get a lot of people watching it, both on the live version and the rewind on it. That's every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and the Facebook page is Ropert and Partners, so they can check it out there. And then they can always go to our website at ropertandpartners.com.
Yeah, and you have a good blog on there. I was looking at that. You've got some great content, some visual. It looks like a whiteboard scratch up of strategy. It's kind of almost like a class or something that you might have done. So, yeah, I encourage people to go there. And again, what was the live broadcast? It's Ask the Pros, and
Ask the Pros on Facebook Live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and then they can always go on Ropert and Partners on Facebook Live. And then starting next week, actually, I'm going to move that over to a Zoom platform where I'll be able to record it and then post it up on my YouTube page as well for Ropert and Partners, so people will be able to see it there. So again, just like any other business, I have to promote my company. I have to be out there marketing it because, people know who I am. They know my partners. They know the work that we do. But, out of sight, out of mind. And so you need to be working just as hard as a PR marketing firm as you do for your clients.
Yeah.
So.
And, one thing is kind of came to me, so I'll add a little golden nugget on that. Because I know in my own journey of trying to, whether it was getting my website up and creating myself as an authority, now in the midst of promoting the book, I'll come back to that. I won't post it right now. I won't share it right now. But
raise it one more time. Show that book.
Go to
There you
Amazon
go.
again, Inside Secrets to Angel Investing, or Barnes and Noble, any place. So if is that there seems to be a lot of people that say they can create a social media strategy. I had one of my web guys was like, oh, we're going to do this thing and it'll be blogs and you will do all this stuff and it'll be this series. And it was like a 6-month thing. But I feel like that's so much, after talking to you and listening to you, that's so much of a sort of like a one piece of the puzzle. It's a tactical thing, but it doesn't necessarily produce the strategic of where somebody wants to go from this point to this point and be able to look back and see a growth of their marketplace, their community, their business, and all that kind of stuff. It's just, am I right in assuming
Right.
that it's that you need to, that a lot of people think they know how to do some of these things, but they really need to look at somebody that can see the big picture, that's somebody like yourself that's a PR strategist?
Absolutely. That, and you're absolutely correct. It is just a piece of it. Content is a piece of it. The way that you go about where you put that content, you've got to be able to know your markets and your audiences, know where they live, know their personas, who they are, what their traits, habits, interests are. And that's all available. You've just got to know where to look for it with the analytics that are available to you today. But you've got to be able to really, incorporate all of that. That's a big part of it. And that's kind of where people miss it. They go, yeah, I'm going to market. Well, where, when, and why? What's your goal? Who are you going to reach? How are you going to reach them? What's the budget going to be for something like that? And how can you blend the PR, that's the free stuff, that's the earned media, with your paid media? And those have to work together. And again, with and too many times is a disconnect. And so, folks like myself and other professionals, we spend a lot of time working with the client, really, and sometimes it really bothers them because we want to know so behind the scenes. We want to get all the background information, but all that is so critical, because if we miss a piece or a point, again, we can be the disconnector. And we don't want to do that. We want to ensure that there's smooth messaging across the board, and it reaches those people when you want it to reach them in the best way that they can be reached.
Right. So it's not so much, it's not like you're not going to use those folks, because sometimes, I would guess you probably have people on your team that you refer people to, but you're not doing all the copywriting yourself. You're not doing the social media campaigns yourself. You're creating the strategy, and then there's tactical people that get involved. Yes. But if you're going to go spend, a few $1,000s, over 4 or 5 months to increase your SEO and do social media campaigns and do a Hootsuite thing or whatever, don't go spend that money without figuring out where it's going to fit in the overall strategy for the business strategy of how you're going to grow the message and create that. I mean, it needs to be money well spent, and spent wisely, because it's part of a bigger strategy.
Yeah, when we go in, and I sit down with a client, it's really to analyze everything that they're doing. Talk about, it's tell me your hopes, your dreams, your values, your mission, everything that I need to know that I can possibly learn about your business, and then how are you doing it? And then the way I structured my firm was that I pull the partners in based on the client's need. So we're not a huge company. We're a bunch of folks who are collaborating on a project. So we get a client, and if they need web, then I've got web, I've got social media, I've got writers, I've got graphic designers. And depending on what the client needs, that team comes together. Could be for the whole time, could be for part of the time, but it works out well. Saves the client money. They get more focused service. They get exactly what they need to achieve their goals, and that's done because somebody like myself or one of my other partners is spending the time as the face of the company with that client. They know what's going on, and then they bring the other folks in to do the assist part, the heavy lift.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you so much, Gio, for joining me today. This has been a great conversation.
I've had
live, almost live. I mean, in color. I like this Zoom thing and being able to talk directly. I think I broke the code on what the future for the Compassionate Capitalist video show is. What, on a podcast? I don't know. I don't even know what to call these things.
It's a vlog, a vblog.
Yeah.
Vlog.
We should come up vlog. It's the vlog.
Yeah, it's a vlog. It's a, you know, but it is. And hey, you know what? Video is the most watched thing on social media. And you put it on your social media channel, it'll blow it up.
Yeah.
It's incredible because when I do my show, I get, you know, thousands of folks that have tuned into it. I write, you know, post a blog or something like that. If it's not a paid thing, I get a few hundred. But, you know, so people watch video, and Facebook rewards video.
Yes.
So
good.
Keep that in mind when you're doing that. Facebook rewards video.
All right. So great. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in and watching this after the fact as well. And you're going to go to ropertandpartners.com to get in touch with Gio. And you can get in touch with me at KarenRands.co, Karen Rands, KarenRands.co. And there is a thing there, Inside Secrets to Angel Investing is my book page that has excerpts. It has other videos and interviews about the book. And you can always get it at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble and any place that you like to buy books. Available on Kindle as well. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing how this turns out. Look forward to working with you in the future. And we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Karen.
All right. Bye-bye.